Welcome back. It's our last day. It's day 5 of abstract drawing for 10 to 12-year-olds, and I'm Donna Anderson. So I'm glad to see you again. I hope you've got lots of drawings already done. Today, we're going to use markers. Now that's probably your favorite thing to use. You've probably had a set of markers since you were 2, and hopefully you did not draw all over your mom's wall, but you might have. So what we're going to do today is we're going to choose something that is identifiable. And what I chose, well, let's see if you can guess. What did I choose? I chose a cat. And what I did was I made sure that I didn't put details. You would never see a cat like this. But you can tell, kind of, that it's a cat from its little ears and the way its body goes, and then its tail. And then I put some more lines around it to just kind of bring it out to the edges of the pictures. So I'm going to use some color with this, and we're going to do another drawing also. But I want you to think about simplification. And what does that mean? Simplify. It's kind of like drawing a portrait of someone or drawing a stick figure. So stick figure would be pretty simplified. Okay? So go get your markers, go get a piece of paper, and let's do it. Okay, so you've seen my simplified cat. And what I'm going to do now is add some color to it because I have all kinds of markers that are in all kinds of colors. These are water soluble. And as you know, I like to get a brush and some water. And I like to make stuff change. So I can put this on my cat. Look at that. That's kind of cool, isn't it? I know it's a drawing, but it'll still have some interesting parts to it when I put water on it. Ooh, really nice. Cool, cool, cool. Okay, now I'm not going to put it on the lines. I know I put it on that line, but I'm not going to put it on the lines outside because if I do that, then I can't work on it. So we're going to let this just kind of meander around. And I'm going to take some, what do I want for a background? How about some blue? So I'm going to take some blue for a background, and I'm going to start working with zigzags, because I see these little points that are on the edges of the cat. And so I'm going to put some little points going around my fractured lines. And what's fractured? Well, it kind of took it apart, didn't I? And I kind of repeated some of the lines that were on the cat. Repeated shapes. Have you heard of that before? And I like the way this looks, and it kind of reminds me of the cat's claws. So that's kind of like a claw, or it's kind of also like sharp teeth. Now, if your cat is really soft and cuddly, then maybe you don't want to do really sharp edges like I've done. You might want to do a smoother, rounder, but you still don't want to make it look exactly like a cat. You want to make it look like a picture that has shapes and different lines in it. You want to look more at the picture than you want it to be a picture of something. Now, does that make sense? Think about that for a minute. We want to be more involved with the shapes and the lines and the dark and light and the balance and all of the elements and principles of art than we do with the object of the picture. Okay. All right, so I think that's done pretty much all it can, and I'm going to dry it now. Or just pick up the extra, the water that's on it. So if I just lay this down and not rub it, just press it down. Because if I rub it, then it will smear. And what I'm doing now is just picking it up. And then there's another place where it's still really wet. Pick that up. Okay. All right. Now this is all nice and soft and fuzzy, and this is all really sharp. Is that a problem? Well, not for me, because I think what I'm going to do is take a purple, because I want a purple cat, and put some lines in here that will still have those soft edges in the background, but it will have a different look with this on top of it. Now notice where the paper is still wet that this tends to bleed, which is okay with me. I kind of like it. Actually, those look like piano keys, don't they? Where it's kind of fat at one end and skinny then down through there. Okay. So then on this front edge, I'm going to do that with the leg too. Okay. So I have all this purple. Then what do I want to do? Well, I could make it go around this way. Put like a little crown on it. I think that I'm going to go ahead and put blue on here. But now I'm going to use my little scribble, because I really like that little scribble, and use it on the front side. And if you'll notice where it's wet, you can see that it kind of bleeds out or spreads out a little bit. Now, while we were talking a little while ago about complementary colors on day 4, we said that the complement of blue was orange, didn't we? So I may put some orange in my background to go with the blue that's already there. And what color was the complement of violet? Yellow. Now the only problem we have with this is that when I put this yellow down on that black that's wet, it may cause it to have a black mark on it. If it does, you can take that off or make it not show up anymore just by rubbing it on a paper towel. But it doesn't seem to be causing a problem. So I'm going to color this in. I'm going to color it in here. See right there, it caused it to make a mark. All right, so I have my complement here, and I can put some yellow lines there if I want. And I can also, not too bad, I can also go over this and add a little yellow in there in the front. And you know what? I don't like those blue lines anymore. So I think I'm going to use my brush and not get it too wet. You can have a paper towel sitting here and just kind of wipe it on there. And I'm going to paint this a little bit and soften those up a little. Okay, so I've only done that on this side because I want you to look at the difference. Okay, so this looks like it goes in more, it blends more with the picture, with it softer than this does. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and soften those also. And as you let it sit, it will bleed a little bit. or get bigger. See how it's moved out? It's called bleed when a painter does that. But pens and other things can bleed too. If you've ever washed a red jersey with white t-shirts, you know that it'll bleed and you'll have a pink t-shirt. Okay, so I have that. Kind of like that. I'm going to still try my orange because that is the complement. And instead of it being a zigzag, I think I'm just going to make a thick line. And I'm going to let it go all the way off my paper. So I'm going to stay next to it, go off my paper. It's hard to hold it. Okay, now see that little mark right there? That's where, and it will show up a little bit. That's where this has been wet. So if that bothers you, then maybe you shouldn't do it this way. I don't really mind as long as it doesn't show up on when I'm making another line. I don't want it to draw a black line too. I want it just to draw an orange line. And I'm going to let that go off the paper. Color that in. We'll go over here and off the paper. Now you're probably going, why are you going off the paper? Well, I just didn't feel like it that this blue was holding it together here. I think it needs to go off the paper just to kind of make it, I don't know how to explain it. Is that crazy? I'm an art teacher. I'm supposed to be able to explain that, aren't I? Well, I just don't like the way it looks. And as an artist, the more things that you look at, the more you're going to be able to make decisions. I used to tell my students that it just doesn't feel right. It bothers me. And they go, what do you mean it bothers you? And I go, well, I know it's not quite the way I want it to be, but I'm not really sure yet how I do want it to be. So it bothers me. So until it doesn't bother me anymore, I'm going to work on it. So I don't want it to bother you either. But one of the main things you need to do is just to look at a lot of different artworks. Now that's kind of cool. I'm kind of liking that. But in 5 minutes, I may not like it. All right, what if I put well, that's not bad. Still doing zigzags, but I'm not doing them as uniform, which means all the same. I'm just kind of zipping around with them. That fills in more space because I think that there was too much space there. And they're still pointing toward my cat or my cat-like shape. Now, what did we say an abstract was? Not necessarily a picture that you would see. Not a person, place, or thing that you would actually see. So if you actually saw a cat like this, I think I'd run. Because it wouldn't actually be something that you'd see in real life. Okay. Almost done. Okay. I got to get the water out again. I just think it's too hard. Just the solid areas. So where I made these solid areas, I'm going to blend them out a little. Yeah, that's better. Still kind of has a hard edge there. What I can do is just kind of pull that out from the edge. Now you can use your markers on a wet piece of paper. Just be sure that you put the top back on and don't let it dry with just water on it, because it will make the edge hard on it. You don't want that to happen. Okay, now I've still got some of the orange in my brush. Now, look at this area, and then look at that area. I think I like the way this blends together. Yes, I know, it's supposed to be a drawing. Well, why does it have to just have lines? Because this is abstract. If you're just a mark maker, though, not just, but if you are a mark maker, it may bother you to have these soft areas and you want them to be harder. That's okay too. You have to decide where you're going with your work. Now, I like this better. I like things that are a little more worked instead of leaving some white area in it. So I'm going to continue to do this and see what happens. It doesn't seem to blend too much, so I need to put my marker back in it and give it a little more paint. I'm going to do that right there too. But I'm not going to go over into my zigzags. I kind of like those zigzags there. And then here. Put some water up in there. So if somebody asks you, why did you do that? And you don't really know why, that's okay. You may decide later on that you thought it worked better together, or you thought that the colors would look better if they were closer to each other, or that you just didn't like those lines. That's okay too. But don't necessarily tell somebody that that's a cat. Let them figure out what it is. Now, if somebody asks you and you say that's an abstract drawing, they could go, well, that looks like a cat to me. And you can say, yeah, it's an abstract of a cat. I simplified it, and you don't see that anywhere else. So if I cover up this part of it, see, I like the way that is. If I cover up this part of it, I don't really like all that white showing. So I think I made the right choice in this particular case. And if I hadn't made the right choice, that would be okay too. I'd just have to figure out another way to do it. I could take some construction paper and glue it down like we did in the last lesson, and then draw on top of that. So you just have to figure out what it is you want it to look like, and just try some different things. You know, it's not set in stone. You don't have to have that picture finished, because you don't get a grade on it. Now, if you're at school, it might be a different story, because you may only get one piece of paper, and you may have a certain assignment to do. Now look at my marker. What's happening? What's happening is that I'm pulling all the ink out of it. So just be careful that you may use up your marker doing it this way, because it kind of wicks it, and that means that it just pulls the color out. And if it pulls all the color out, then you won't have an orange marker. It will be used up. One more place here. I'm about out of ink. Now, another thing you can do, it may be that it's just pulled it out from this end, is you can take some more area in here. Okay, that's pretty wild. What you can do, since this is wicked out, is take and stand it up in a glass, an empty glass or a can, and just stand it up so that it runs down in there, because there is still ink inside. All right, so there's my picture. So what do you think? And finally, we use markers. Markers has got to be the easiest thing to use. I did go over this with white pencil because I thought it was a little bit jumping out at me too much, and so I backed it up a little. You could also have taken pieces of paper and glued it down on top of it. You could have gone back with colored pencils and drawn other things into it and had a mixed media piece. But that's my final piece for the markers. Now, how many pieces do we have? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Depends on how many you did at home. But I do want you to get them all together, look at all of them. And a little secret that I want to tell you. If you'll title each one of them, if you'll give it a title, then people will kind of know what to think about. If I say flower garden for this, they might go, flower garden? I don't see a flower garden. And then they might think, oh, wow, at my grandmother's house, there were some purple flowers that I remember them growing over on the side yard. And so it might make them think about something that is a memory for them. But it doesn't necessarily have to be what you had in mind. But if you do give it a title, then that gives them a place to start. So I hope this has helped you. And I'd love to see some of your work. So if there's an adult in your house that can take a picture and you can send it into the museum, there's an email address at the end, and we'd love to see what you've done. So have your art show, get some snacks together, talk about what you've done. See you later. Bye.